Prologue. The night was quiet over Blackthorn Mansion, the wind rattling broken shutters and carrying whispers through the skeletal remains of the estate. For years, the mansion had been nothing more than a rumor, a haunted landmark for thrill-seekers, but tonight, it was more than that. Tonight, the T.E.C.T. team was here to uncover the truth. Zack moved first, his calm voice over the comm steady as always. "Keep your eyes open. Nothing in here is as it seems." Ken followed, scanning the rooms with a portable analyzer. The screens flickered with residual energy readings, and the team's progress was carefully documented. Behind them, Rico's heavy boots echoed in the hallways, a reminder that not all threats were invisible. Viola disappeared into the shadows, silently slipping through the ruined corridors, eyes sharp for any detail the others might miss. They had come for Subject 16, but what they found first was something else entirely. In the remnants of the old study, tucked beneath floorboards and behind false panels, was a camera, the same one Tom and Jack had used in their infamous PsychoStream livestream. Dust-covered and cracked, its lens still caught the faintest reflections of the team. Ken crouched over the camera and muttered, This is the last footage from the original group. We need to see what they saw." Hours passed as the team reviewed the recordings. Shadows moved oddly in the footage, and subtle noises suggested something, or someone, had been watching. Then, hidden in a false drawer, Viola found it, a leather-bound diary. The handwriting inside was precise, clinical, and unnervingly cold. As they read, the truth became undeniable. Drive. Elias Varn had forged his identity on all official documents. Every name, every record, every grant, altered. And the reason was revealed in the margins. He had been secretly working with Tech, a corporation with ambitions far beyond mere research. Eluthex wasn't just a chemical experiment, it was a weapon, and Varn had been their agent from the start. The team left the mansion before dawn, evidence in hand, and returned to their base. They met with the president of T.E.C.T., a figure who carried the weight of countless operations on his shoulders. The briefing room was tense as Zack and Ken explained what they had found. Rico emphasized the practical dangers, and Viola recounted the subtle clues that had hinted at Varn's hidden affiliations. The president listened, nodding gravely. "This changes everything. We're not just dealing with a rogue scientist anymore. Tech is involved." As if on cue, alarms shattered the room's fragile focus. Red lights pulsed, screens flickered, and a calm voice on the comms barely held back panic. Multiple incidents reported in FoxVill. BTEs, Blackthorn experiments, are attacking civilians. Authorities are overwhelmed. The team exchanged glances. The quiet horrors of Blackthorn Mansion had already escalated into something far larger, and the mission that began with shadows and diaries was now erupting into chaos across the city. Zack clenched his jaw. "Let's move. The real nightmare is just beginning." Chapter 1, The Town That Should Be Empty. The armored vehicle rolled slowly down the cracked highway leading into FoxVill. Wind pushed trash and dead leaves across the road. Inside the vehicle, the T.E.C.T. team watched the town through narrow armored windows. Zack leaned forward in his seat. "FoxVill emergency signal activated 3 hours ago," he said. "No communication since." Ken looked down at the tablet in his hands. Population around 4,000. Small town. Farming, lumber, nothing unusual. Rico checked the magazine on his rifle. Small towns are always the worst ones. Viola glanced at him. "And why is that?" Rico shrugged. "Nowhere to run." The vehicle turned onto Main Street. Cars were abandoned everywhere. Some still had their doors open. Ken frowned. "That's not evacuation behavior." Zack nodded. "It's panic." A loud metallic clang echoed somewhere far down the street. Everyone froze. Rico slowly raised his rifle. "Well," he muttered, "FoxVill might not be empty after all." Chapter 2, First Contact. The team moved through the street cautiously. Zack signaled toward a narrow alley between 2 brick buildings. "Rico, check it." Rico smirked. "My favorite hobby." He stepped into the alley. For a moment, there was silence. Then something moved. A thin figure lunged from behind a dumpster with terrifying speed. Rico barely reacted in time. The creature slammed into him, teeth snapping. Contact. Rico shoved the thing back and fired twice. The shots echoed through the empty town. The infected collapsed onto the pavement. Ken approached carefully. That was fast. Viola crouched beside the body. The infected skin looked gray and stretched. Veins bulged along its neck. This isn't normal infection behavior, she said. Zack stared down the street. Gunshots travel. Ken looked up. You're thinking what I'm thinking. Zack nodded. Yeah, more infected might have heard them. And they might already be coming. Chapter 3, Echoes of Panic. They reached the FoxVill police station. The front door hung open. Inside, chairs were overturned and papers covered the floor. Ken moved to the radio desk. It's still powered. Static filled the room. Then a voice played from the recorder. A terrified dispatcher. Anyone receiving this, the infected are everywhere. They're attacking people in the streets. We tried to evacuate but... The recording cut into screaming. Then silence. Viola crossed her arms. That escalated fast. Rico checked the hallway. No barricades. No defensive positions. Zack understood immediately. They didn't have time. Ken looked at the map on the wall. If the infection spread this quickly... He paused. This wasn't natural. Zack finished the thought. Someone brought it here. Chapter 4, The Schoolhouse. A faint sound echoed from down the street. Knocking. The team followed the noise to the town school. Inside, a classroom door slowly opened. A woman peeked out. Behind her were 6 frightened people. Please, she whispered. Are you military? Zack lowered his weapon slightly. Response unit. You're safe now. One of the survivors spoke quickly. They came out of nowhere. People started attacking each other. It was like they weren't human anymore. Ken stepped forward. Did you see where the first attack started? The woman nodded slowly. The old warehouse near the forest. Viola exchanged a glance with Zack. That sounded very familiar. Chapter 5, Something in the Woods. The survivors described what they saw earlier that day. They came from the woods, one man said nervously. People. He shook his head. Not exactly. Rico leaned against the wall. Define. Not exactly. The man swallowed. They moved strange. Like animals learning how to walk. Ken muttered quietly. Neurological degradation. Zack looked at him. Aleuthex. Ken nodded slowly. Possibly. Viola stepped toward the window. Outside, the sun was beginning to set. Shadows stretched across the empty streets of FoxVill. She spoke quietly. If this is Aleuthex. Her voice lowered. Then someone started this. Chapter 6, Nightfall. Darkness fell fast in FoxVill. Streetlights flickered once, then died. Viola scanned the skyline from the school's front window. They'll use the shadows, she muttered. Rico loaded a new magazine into his rifle. Shadows don't scare me. Zack looked over the team. We can't afford overconfidence. Not tonight. Ken crouched near the classroom door, tablet in hand. Sensors show multiple heat signatures approaching from the east side of town. What kind of signatures? Zack asked. Ken's voice was grim. Fast. Agile. Not standard infected. A faint scraping noise came from the corridor behind them. All 4 soldiers froze. Then a loud crash, a chair thrown across the hall. Rico growled. Well, that's polite. Viola drew a knife. They're testing us. We can't fight blind. The team hunkered down, listening. Footsteps outside the classroom, slow, deliberate. Then silence. Zack whispered, it's coming. Get ready. The first BTE broke the darkness like a shadow turning into flesh. Chapter 7, The First Wave. Rico opened fire as the creature lunged. The rounds hit, but it didn't stop. It twisted unnaturally, almost learning from the hits. Viola slashed at another one, cutting its arm, but it screeched and advanced relentlessly. Ken shouted over the chaos. We're outnumbered. Fall back. Zack covered the retreat, pulling the survivors behind him. A scream echoed from the hallway, one of the civilians. Rico sprinted to save them, firing on instinct. Viola hissed, they're coordinating. Did you see that? Ken's eyes widened. Not human coordination, smarter. Adaptable. Zack fired one last round at a BTE before retreating. We survive. That's priority number 1. Everyone out. They barricaded themselves in the back office as footsteps faded outside. Rico slammed a chair against the door. Who designed these things? We're not dealing with animals. Viola's gaze stayed on the dark hallway. Aleuthex. This is Aleuthex. Chapter 8, Tactical Sweep. Morning brought pale light through broken windows. Zack gathered the team. We can't stay put. We need intel. Rico checked the street. All clear, for now. Viola rolled her shoulders. We sweep the area, quiet and methodical. No hero moves. No mistakes. Ken pulled up the map of FoxVill. We follow streets with survivors marked. Avoid high-risk zones. As they moved, they encountered a small group of infected trying to flee the streets. Take them quietly, Zack ordered. Rico nodded, creeping behind a lamppost. A single suppressed round silenced one. Viola's knife did the rest. Ken shook his head. They're learning from each other. Every encounter teaches them something. Zach looked down the empty street. Then we teach them a lesson they won't forget. Chapter 9, The Warehouse. The team arrived at the warehouse described by the survivors. The building loomed in the dim light, doors chained and padlocked. Viola stepped forward. Looks abandoned, but nothing's ever simple. Rico kicked the padlock. It fell apart with a loud clang. Inside, crates labeled ELUTHEX biochemical storage were stacked floor to ceiling. Ken's eyes widened. This is it. FoxVill was a testing ground. Zach frowned. How many shipments were here before the outbreak? Viola's lips tightened. Enough to turn the town into a battlefield. The team moved cautiously through the maze of crates. A sudden movement caught Rico's eye, something scuttling above them. Before he could shout, a shadow dropped from the ceiling, landing in a crouch. Its eyes glowed faintly. Rico raised his rifle, but the thing was gone before he fired. Zach whispered, "They're here, and they're smarter than last night." Chapter 10, Core Tech Evidence. Ken began scanning the warehouse for records. He pulled out a tablet from a fallen crate. "Files are mostly transport logs," he said. "But, wait. There are experimental design notes." Viola leaned in. "Design notes for what?" Ken's face paled. "Eluthex variants. They've been modifying the formula for months." Rico muttered, "So FoxVill wasn't an accident." Zach clenched his fists. It was a trial run. A test of something much worse. Suddenly, a low growl echoed across the warehouse. Everyone froze. The BTEs were learning to hunt in teams now. Rico whispered, "Welcome to the next wave." Chapter 11, The Experiment. Ken rifled through the scattered papers on a dusty crate. "Look at this," he said, pointing at schematics and chemical formulas. They weren't just transporting Eluthex, they were actively experimenting with it. Viola's eyes narrowed. Experimenting how? Ken scrolled through the logs. Altering aggression levels, speed, intelligence. They wanted controlled predators, not just mindless infected. Rico let out a low whistle. "So we're talking soldiers without fear, without mercy." Zach rubbed his temples. "No empathy. That's the definition of a weapon designed to kill efficiently." A sharp noise echoed in the warehouse, a crate falling somewhere in the shadows. Viola whispered, "They know we're here." Rico loaded his rifle. "Then it's time to remind them we're smarter than a crate." Chapter 12, The Smart Ones. The team moved deeper into the warehouse, past the broken crates. Viola crouched behind a stack, whispering, "They're studying our movements." Rico raised an eyebrow. "Studying? They're just creatures. Not these ones," Viola replied. "They learn fast. Look at how coordinated their attacks were last night." A faint scratching sound came from above. Then another, faster. Ken muttered, "Heat signatures, multiple. On the ceiling, moving." Rico groaned. "Figures. They evolve." "Great." Zach signaled to move silently. "We go slow. One misstep and they'll adapt immediately." Suddenly, a BTE dropped from a catwalk, landing in front of Ken. It moved unnaturally, predicting his path. Ken yelped, shoving the tablet away. Rico fired quickly. The creature fell, but another was already taking its place. Viola hissed, "We're running out of time." Chapter 13, Trapped. The warehouse doors slammed shut with a thunderous bang. "What now?" Rico yelled. Zach checked the lock system. Automated containment. "We're trapped." Viola's eyes scanned the ceiling. They designed this building for this scenario. They expected intruders. Ken's tablet blinked red. Sensors are picking up multiple movements converging from every corner. They've coordinated a hunt pattern. Rico gritted his teeth. "I was hoping this day couldn't get worse." Zach drew his sidearm. "We fight our way out. No hesitation. Move as a unit, cover all angles." The first wave of BTEs lunged from the shadows. Screams and gunfire filled the warehouse. Viola's knife flashed in the dim light. Rico fired in controlled bursts. Ken ducked behind a crate. "They're learning during the fight." Zach yelled over the chaos, "No mistakes. Adapt faster than they do." Chapter 14, Escape Route. Viola found a narrow maintenance tunnel along the east wall. "This way," she whispered, pointing. Rico groaned. "Cramped, dark, and probably full of who knows what." "Perfect." Ken followed cautiously, scanning for heat signatures. "It's clear for now, but only barely." The survivors shuffled behind them, terror etched on every face. Outside, faint screams echoed from the warehouse. Viola muttered, "They're not giving up. We have a head start. Don't waste it." Rico muttered under his breath, "If we survive this, I'm never complaining about overtime again." Zach glanced at him. Focus. We get everyone out first, then we worry about complaining. The tunnel led them beneath the streets of FoxVill. Dim emergency lights flickered on the walls, casting shadows that danced like monsters. Ken whispered, "Keep moving. Every second counts." Chapter 15, The Tunnel. The narrow passage twisted, echoing every footstep. Rico grumbled, "I hate tunnels. I always hate tunnels." Viola shot him a glare. "You'll live longer if you stop whining." Ahead, a faint scratching sound grew louder. Ken held up a hand. Heat signatures, multiple, ahead. A group of BTE emerged from the darkness, eyes glowing faintly. Zack barked orders. "Split. Flank left and right. Keep them off the civilians." Rico sprinted to the right, firing suppressive rounds. Viola lunged left, knives slicing through shadows. Ken herded the civilians, whispering encouragement. "Almost there, keep moving." The first BTE dodged and twisted unnaturally around Rico's shots. Rico swore under his breath. "What the hell are these things?" Viola's voice cut through the chaos. "The results of human ambition. And stupidity." They pressed forward, deeper into the tunnel, hoping the end would appear soon. Chapter 16, Survivor Convoy. The tunnel widened slightly, revealing a secondary stairwell leading upward. Zack motioned the survivors forward. "Stay close. No one strays." Ken scanned the heat map. "Multiple signatures are converging behind us. They've learned the tunnel layout." Rico whispered, "Great. They're hunting with a map now." Viola glanced back. "Keep moving. They're fast, but we're faster." From the shadows, faint growls echoed. A group of BTE emerged, moving silently in perfect coordination. Rico raised his rifle. Time to remind them why humans invented guns. Suppressive fire erupted. Civilians stumbled over each other, but Zack kept order. "Move. Don't stop." The group advanced, twisting through narrow passages, the infected closing in at every corner. Ken muttered, "They're learning our patterns. Every second counts." Viola kicked one BTE back into the shadows. "Then we adapt faster." Chapter 17, Surface Break. They emerged outside the tunnel near the wreckage of a Core-Tech transport vehicle. Smoke curled into the evening sky. Rico scanned the horizon. "We made it, but that's too quiet." Zack crouched behind the vehicle. "Enemy isn't done yet." Ken pulled out a tablet, flicking through satellite maps. "FoxVill is a quarantine zone now. Military strike teams are inbound." Viola's eyes scanned the surrounding forest. "Some of the infected aren't dead. They might be waiting." A low screech echoed from the trees. Rico raised his rifle. "Figures. Nature doesn't like witnesses." They moved cautiously to a safe distance, survivors in tow, as distant gunfire and explosions lit the night sky. Chapter 18, The Truth. Back at the transport wreck, Ken began sorting through the remaining files. "These are internal Core-Tech documents," he said, voice tight. "They planned the shipment through FoxVill weeks in advance." Viola frowned. "Planned? So this wasn't an accident." Zack clenched his fists. "They weaponized it intentionally. Tested it in a live environment." Rico shook his head. "Small town, no chance of containment, just like they hoped." "That's insane." Ken flipped through the records. They even noted the BTE performance metrics, learning rates, aggression levels, problem solving. They were studying how quickly the infected adapted. Viola's jaw tightened. And Subject 16 wasn't the endgame. He was the template. A chill ran down everyone's spine. Chapter 19, The Containment Strike. Military. Helicopters arrived, cutting through the smoky sky. Searchlights illuminated the quarantined town. Rico muttered, "Finally, backup." Zack shook his head. "Too little, too late for some. We need to make sure none of the experimental data survives." Viola aimed her knife at a crate of documents. "Let's make sure Core-Tech has nothing left to play with." Ken scanned the area. Heat signatures still active. Some of the smarter BTE are still alive. Zack barked orders. "We destroy the evidence and led survivors to extraction. No mistakes." Explosions rocked the town as containment teams moved in. Fire consumed the experimental shipments. The team watched as the BTE were hunted down or forced to retreat into the woods. Chapter 20, The Next Target. Back at T.E.C.T headquarters, the team analyzed everything recovered from FoxVill. Ken pointed at a decrypted file. "Core-Tech isn't finished. They're consolidating operations in a central facility, much larger than FoxVill." Viola's eyes narrowed. "And that's where they'll try the next experiment." Rico slammed his fist on the table. "Then let's make sure they fail spectacularly." Zack leaned back, studying the team. FoxVill was a test. But the real fight starts next. And if Subject 16 is still alive, Viola's voice was barely above a whisper. Then we're hunting him too. The room fell silent. Every team member understood the unspoken truth. The predator from Blackthorn Mansion was still out there, watching, waiting, learning. Outside, the wind carried the faint sound of distant movement. Somewhere in the shadows, a pair of glowing eyes reflected the moonlight. The black lantern burned brighter.